This is Michael Lukes with the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization, joined by Derek Weber, president of goBRANDgo. On your About page, Derek, it reads that you're the champion of the everyday entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit about goBRANDgo, and how are you the champion of the everyday entrepreneur?
Well, great to be chatting with you today, Michael. So goBRANDgo, we are a strategic branding and marketing firm that works with a $2 to $50 million entrepreneur. So not necessarily startups, but entrepreneurs that have achieved a certain level of success, and we try to get them to that next level. So what we like to kind of jokingly say is if they were an airplane, they got to 10,000 feet, they can turn on their electronic devices, but we try to get them to 30,000 feet so they can get to cruising altitude. So we really focus on what we like to say is we really like to focus on taking the allowing the multi-neighborhood business and taking them and making them able to compete with the multinational corporations. So we want to give the opportunity of the regional businesses that are looking to grow and looking to expand, and we really try to work with the strategic branding and marketing in a way that they can really explode, because we're firm believers that being the champion of the everyday entrepreneur to us means that that no entrepreneur should be limited by how big their idea is or how big they want to grow their company. They should only be limited by the size of their idea and the depth of their passion, and not by any outside limitations or by any competitors. So, we really try to focus on helping our clients in the entrepreneurial space accomplish their goals.
You started goBRANDgo at the age of 21. Have you always been entrepreneurial?
Looking back, growing up, I would have said no. But looking back, I don't know that you think of yourself as an entrepreneur until you are one. I think I'm a perfect example of an accidental entrepreneur. But I spent a lot of my childhood being involved in a lot of leadership stuff. I can still remember back to my fourth grade class, which was my first foray into leadership. I was president of my fourth grade class, and our big project that we put on that year was we did a couple bake sales and a couple fundraisers to raise money to paint the Missouri State map out on the playground, and it had cities and everything. It was a big accomplishment. And then going into fifth grade was my first experience with business when I was in charge of the popcorn company that we sold popcorn at lunch breaks, and we were able to invest and get paid dividends and the whole bit. And then throughout middle school and high school and college, I was always involved in organizations, and I was always seemed to end up being elected president of my student council in both middle school and then high school, and was president of my fraternity in college, and so I always had leadership opportunities that I loved. And so for me, being an entrepreneur has really given me an opportunity to practice those leadership skills once again, and being able to utilize those things and the elements that I've always done.
Back in college, what inspired the creation of the company?
So I was on campus at St. Louis University and was a marketing and finance major, and one of the guys in my fraternity had worked as a sales rep for a company selling T-shirts to a lot of returns and stories on campus, and he was graduating and was looking to pass that kind of sales rep position on, and so I did that for a year and made some good connections, and was really involved on campus, was involved in a lot of organizations, and knew a lot of people, and made some connections on the business side, and I was thinking, I think I can do this on my own. And so for the summer before my senior year, decided to start my own company. Full intentions of just setting up the systems and building it out. And once I got my real job and graduated, then pass it on to somebody else in the fraternity. But a funny thing happened on the way to that plan is that it really kind of took off. Once I had a lot of fun with it, and was ended up doing almost $45,000 in revenue my senior year in college, and which is nice because my office was in my college apartment, so it was had to really start thinking hard and long about is this something that that I want to keep doing. And talked with a lot of my advisors and talked with a lot of my marketing professors and vendors and suppliers and anybody that would listen, really, I talked to about, kind of the pros and cons of, if I wanted to do that or, take some of the job offers that I had. And, and I can still remember the moment when I decided to go for it. I was actually sitting in the lobby waiting to talk with one of my advisors, Debbie Okich, who was actually in charge of she was the internship coordinator. And as fortune had it, her meeting was running long, so I had to sit there and wait for a little while, and happened to pick up a copy of Fast Company that was sitting there, and flipping through, and came across this article by Jim Collins, who I had no idea who Jim Collins was at the time, but, of good to great, built to last lore. And what he talked about was the difference between failure and failure. And Jim Collins is a big rock climber, and talked about how, failure is really not going for it, as opposed to failure is when you go for it and you just don't make it. And he had a kind of a back and forth conversation exchange with one of his MBA students, and the conversation was with one of his students who had an offer from, I think it was IBM or something like that had this great job offer from a Fortune 500 company, but she also had this business idea that she wanted to try. And so Jen posed the question of, worst case scenario, if you try your business, 1 year from now, what are you going to do? She's like, well, I guess I'd get a job. He's like, isn't it worth 1 year of your life just to see if that business has merit? And I was like, oh my goodness, this is speaking directly to me. And so, when I walked into my meeting with Debbie, I had the magazine in my hand. I said, Debbie, I'm going for it. And so to me, that was really the real start of the business, was that moment.
So what steps have you had to take to make goBRANDgo a reality, both when you first started up and while scaling the business to turn it into what it is today?
Oh my goodness. It's been a journey of a million steps. So it's been 10 years this month, actually. One thing that, I tell a lot of people is, I think the success of entrepreneurs boils down to two things. It's their ability to iterate and persevere. Iterate because you got to be able to continue to evolve, continue to change, continue to try new things, knowing most things aren't going to work, but you do it anyway. And persevere, you just got to be able to put up with more stuff than the next guy. And I think that's been kind of the steps along the way for me, is just really just experimenting with lots of stuff. Along the way, I've tried so many different things, between college campus reps to different technologies to different bringing on a business partner a couple of years ago. Just a whole sorts of things. And one of the big things that allowed me to take the business to really the next level is in 2007. My now wife and I bought a mixed-use building in the Benton Park neighborhood of St. Louis. It had been boarded up and abandoned for a couple of years, and ended up living, working, and rehabbing out of this building. So it was a storefront on the first floor, and then there was kind of residential on the second and third. And so along the way, as the business continued to grow, the two of our 3 bedrooms turned into offices. And now we had office on below us and around us, which made for a tough marriage. But what it allowed us to do is, consolidate some costs early on. When you're really starting to scale and grow, you can't run out of cash. And so, it was really being willing to take some of those chances and put in a whole lot of sweat equity and a whole lot of real sweat to really get the business in a position to be able to take it to that next level. So, it really is, making sure that you can really iterate your idea and just keep your head down and keep going and keep going and keep going. And, one of those times you're going to look up and all of a sudden you're a lot further down the road than when you started.
On behalf of the Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization, I want to thank you for agreeing to speak at the 2013 CEO National Conference in Chicago in October. What will you be speaking about?
So what I'm going to be speaking about is, work with a lot of early stage entrepreneurs from kind of a support standpoint. And what I'm going to talk about is kind of how to get from idea to execution. So I know a lot of people have lots of great ideas. People who are entrepreneurially minded, ideas are never a problem. It's hundreds of ideas a week. And so what I want to try to get to is people who want to be an entrepreneur or entrepreneurs, as they're often referred to. How do we get them off the bench? How do we get them to start trying and start experimenting and get out there and really effectively explore and experiment their idea and see if there's a way that they can really try it out and get it started. So really I'm going to be taking a lot of the components. We've got a workshop that we do here in St. Louis that's how to get from idea to execution in 90 days. So I'm going to be pulling a lot of components from that curriculum to this talk and say, okay, here's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps that you need to be taking in order to test and validate and try to see if the idea has merit or if you need to evolve it and continue to work through it.
Now, supporting entrepreneurs is a part of your business. Why do you believe in supporting young entrepreneurs?
Well, I believe that we're in the middle of a really big macroeconomic change to where, in the past it's been, culturally you worked for large corporations, and the way that the business world is changing and the way the world is changing in general, it's getting back to more of, the entrepreneurial roots of where the country, was built on, which is really exciting. And so it's important that these people that are driving this change are the ones that are really, aren't ingrained with the status quo. And young entrepreneurs are the ones that, see things and know that they can be different and they don't have the restrictions or the baggage or haven't become jaded yet to, from that world of the corporate world that can really weigh you down. And so there's a real opportunity to leverage the energy and the innovation and the imagination of those young entrepreneurs, because they're just fantastic people to work with and just filled with unbridled joy. And for us, for the support standpoint, it's just something that I know what it's like. I started my business when I was 21, and so what I always try to do is be the person and be the company that I wish I would have had back then. And I always make sure to take time. As busy as I am, anytime a young entrepreneur reaches out to, ask if they can stop by the office and, talk for half an hour or go out to lunch or a coffee or for a drink, I always make time for those people, because I know that how important that is and how important just a little bit of guidance and just a little bit of pointing in the right direction, it can make a huge difference. And so this is really kind of came together earlier or late last year into early this year, and goBRANDgo, we actually launched a non-for-profit focused specifically on young entrepreneurs and providing the things that can make them successful. It's a program called the goCellerator. And so what the goCellerator is a program that removes all the distractions from the young entrepreneur's life. So what we do is, provide a fully furnished apartment. We provide office space, mentors, service providers, subsidized food costs, and a lot of mentorship. And so what we're trying to do is, without any exchange of equity or any funding, how can we eliminate the distractions that get in the way of a business and let these young entrepreneurs really focus on driving growth? And so, we've got a great group of partners in the program right now. They started in June for an inaugural class. It's a company called HCP United that they're really focusing on reimagining the healthcare chain, supply chain, and producing e-commerce sites that bolt on to the websites of chiropractors, physical therapists, and podiatrists to let people buy durable medical equipment that normally these doctors would have to inventory. They can just buy them straight from the website. It's just a great company, and what's the great story about them is this is the first time that the three partners have ever actually been in the same state together. There's One's from Iowa, one's from St. Louis, Missouri, and one's from outside of Boston. And so this program has allowed them to come together in one place under one roof and really make some amazing things happen. So, that just kind of epitomizes what, my passion is for young entrepreneurs, and goBRANDgo's focus on building St. Louis into a community where young entrepreneurs can really make a mark.
Great. What has been your biggest mistake as a entrepreneur?
Mistakes are a funny thing. It's kind of the same thing as failure. You look back and you say, well, this may not have worked, but it also led me down the path to where I am, so I don't regret it. But, one of the things that, you can probably point to that now is a big piece of the advice that I give young entrepreneurs is don't spend too much time building without testing. You want to make sure whatever you're working on as a business, don't spend all your time writing a business plan. Don't spend all your time building out this fantastic program that the world will just love. Get out there and try it. Do the minimum viable product. What's the least amount of work you can do to potentially get somebody to give you at least a little bit of money, and get out there and try it. And that used to be something that I would always want to have a fully perfect product or a fully finished program to go out and sell before I would start selling it. And oftentimes I'd spend all this time building this program or, whatever it may be, and then I go out there and realize there was a fatal flaw in step 3 that blows up the whole thing. And so then at that time I wasted all that time building when I should have just been out there, step 1, talk to somebody, step 2, talk to somebody, and come back and iterate each time through and make it more defined on what the customers want.
Based on your experience, what's your best piece of advice for a young entrepreneur?
It's really, I think, don't fall in love with your idea, because your first idea isn't going to work. It's not going to work anyway, so don't fall in love with it. Because the more you fall in love with your idea, the less willing and less able you're going to be able to iterate effectively. And what I mean by that is not necessarily don't believe in what you're doing, but just know how you're going to get there is going to be completely different than what you initially plan on. And so this is where, you've really got to find somebody that's willing to pay you for what you're trying to build. And if you can't find someone to pay you, iterate it until you can create something that they do. Because at the end of the day, if you're not making money as a business, if someone's not buying something from you, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And that's something that is really important, is you've just got to find a way to iterate your idea to where customers will pay you for whatever you're trying to sell.